recreational fisheries survey. So very interesting.
Hiya, I'm Wendy. I work with Zach at CFAS. He couldn't be here today, so he's asked me to give his talk for him on the work that he's done on multi-level regression and post-stratification to extrapolate our fisheries data in the UK. There we go. So yeah, for some background, in the UK, we know that this marine recreational fishing is a high catch and high participation activity, but we have no licenses and no mandatory catch reporting. So we have to do catch and effort surveys to get any estimates. So when running surveys, you're normally taking averages from survey samples and multiplying this up to population levels. And this is normally done through a post-stratification approach. And then to get the best estimates, to get the best averages, you normally split the population up into as many stratum as possible, but that then leads to problems with sample sizes, and then there's also issues combining errors across multiple surveys, since you have to make lots of assumptions about the distribution across all of the different surveys. So that's where MRP, which is the multi-level regression and post-stratification, comes in. So it's a Bayesian modeling framework, and it effectively models the relationships with the different variables rather than creating different groupings. And it's quite common in political science to generate predict election results, but I think it's relatively new to fishery science. So for our surveys in the UK, we have two main surveys. So we have the Water Sports Participation Survey, which is an annual survey across 12,000 households in the UK. And through that, we collect various demographic information, and then also angling participation, and then days fished, and then a variety of other useful sea angling information. And then we also have our sea angling diary program, where we have 2,500 anglers in the UK, and they report their fishing trips and their catches on a monthly basis, or whenever they go fishing, on the app or on a paper logbook or on our web-based system. And then we also collect demographics about them as well. So this shows how we do our analysis of the Sea Angling Diary program. So we use three main data sets. We have the UK census, which gives us the number of people in the UK at different demographic levels. And then we have the Water Sports Participation Survey, which gives us the number of anglers and their avidity. And then we combine those to generate, with the MRP method, to generate a model which gives us the total number of sea anglers in the UK and the total numbers of days fished. And then we have the Sea Angling Diary program, which gives us, which we generate three models from. So that gives us then the catch rates per angler, where the fish is caught, and then the weight of the fish caught. And then that generates 5 models that we can use, get the posterior draws from, and multiply across them to track the uncertainty across all of the different models, and then get our survey totals from that as well. So we also wanted to test if the MRP was better than the normal reweighting approach. So we used a simulation study. So that effectively asks that if we knew the right answer, which method would generate the better result. So we did this by generating generating a census data from our survey data, and then randomly sampling across that census data to, and then we can see which model creates the more accurate result. So this is an example of how we check for the model fit for the MRP. So on the left, you get the normal parameter estimates. So it tells us which parameters are driving whether someone's an angular or not. And then on the right, you have the posterior predictive check. So it's how we check how well the model is fitting to the data. So we compare the posterior predictions, which are the bars, with the raw data means from our survey data, which is the red line. And effectively, you can tell if it's a better fit if it matches the line better. So that's quite a good fit because it's right through the middle. And then within it, we can also correct for bias. So this is an example of how we check for bias using within CBAS. So we run the model with direct ID as a random effect, and then that gives us the plot on the left, which you can see is quite a close fit. There's a little bit of overestimating in the returned, but nothing dramatic. And then we run again without the diarist ID, and we ask the model predictions to average over the diarists. And then that gives the ones on the right. So you can see that it gives a constant reduction in the catch estimates. So we can interpret that as the model correcting for the small number of diarists that catch a lot of CBAS. So it generates slightly smaller results than that. Yeah, and then comparing the MRP to the post-stratification. So on the left, we have the total number of anglers generated by each of the different models, and you can see that it gives quite similar estimates. The MRP gives slightly better errors, especially when you split on smaller geographical scales, which we didn't include here because there was too many plots. And then on the right, we have the total number of fish caught, and the MRP generates smaller estimates but with lower errors, and again better errors when you split on smaller geographical scales. And then this is a result of the simulation study. So it shows the absolute difference from the real world and then the predictions that were generated. And effectively, if the dot's closest to the line, it was a better prediction. So in almost all of the iterations, the model outperformed the reweighting approach. So yeah, overall, the post-stratification is much easier to explain and to set up, and it's much faster to run. But it generates quite high errors, and you have to be able to select the correct stratification before running the model. Whereas the MRP is much harder to explain and set up, and takes much longer to run the models. I think it takes about 5 days. But it does generate a better performance, and it's better able to combine the errors and better at predicting with a limited amount of data as well. Yeah. Sorry, I think I might have sped through that. If it gets there. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the unexpected
Yeah,
talk.
sorry, it was a bit of a whistle stop.
Yeah, it's fine. You did a great job. And do you have questions? Yeah,
I'll try and answer them first.
Okay, nice job, Wendy. So sorry, I was a few minutes late, so I might have missed it. But so these models are working, and you're quite happy with them. But what exactly are you using them for? How are you informing policy?
So this is generating our catch participation. Yeah, catch and participation estimates that we use for basically everything that we do. I think I'm not entirely sure what it's used for in the policies, but it's how we generate basically all of our numbers now.
Awesome presentation, by the way. I was just going to ask, in terms of, you obviously have this as your main process of collecting catch data. Do you use any complementary data sources to sort of establish and check against it, such as boat ramp monitoring or stuff like that?
I don't think we do. I think for the estimates, it's just this. But they might have done stuff before I was involved. So I wasn't really involved in this. I'm just doing it for Zach. So he might have a better knowledge. But I'll ask Kieran in the break and check.
Great job, thank you. And apologies if this is out of bounds, but I was curious about the avidity term that plugs into that. Is that just the measure of how frequently you're doing trips, or is it something more?
Yeah, so it's the number of days fished.
Okay.
So the number of times they go fishing each year.
Okay,
It's
thank
on
you.
an annual basis.
No more questions? We still have a couple of minutes. You are unlucky. I have a question for you.
Okay.
So I think you are doing a great job at CFAS, because this is structural and very important work that you need if you want to then scale it up at national or European level.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. And I saw that the data sources, the input that you're using, it's logbooks, but also apps.
Yeah.
Are you integrating the app into this methodology, or into
So
this?
it's the same thing. So the Sea Angling Diary program, they all sign up to volunteer as diarists, and then they can either report their catches through an app that we have on a web-based tool, or they can, if they want to, they can do a paper copy.
Okay.
So but it's all the same.
Yeah, they have different choices where to
Yeah.
report, but they are voluntarily engaged.
Yeah, and then we have Substance, who are the company that runs it. They check on a monthly basis, so they get in contact with the anglers and check if they've gone fishing or not.
And these voluntary fishers, are they paid or?
No, it's all voluntary. So
Okay.
it just lets them.
So
keep
the
track.
app data, you consider them as probabilistic?
Sorry?
As probabilistic data?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, Wendy, and it's always very hard to give somebody else's talk. So
Yeah.
really, it's not a complex question, but I was just wondering, in terms of the actual catch data, it sounded like that was extrapolated from the Sea Angling Diary. So kind of you have 2,500 anglers that are reporting their catches, and then you extrapolate that based on population.
Yeah.
Now, I was just wondering, the guys who are on the Angling Diary, is that like assume you guys consider that as quite a good representation of the sort of the UK's angling body, or are they sort of aggregated around London, or like, where have you guys, is it sort of throughout the entire country? I'm just curious on that, because that's obviously informing the model quite heavily.
Yeah. It's quite a wide spread, I think, across the UK. I think that there's a lot in the southwest, but I think there's just generally more anglers down there anyway. But we do know it's slightly biased towards more avid and more older anglers who want to report more. But yeah, we know it's biased, but yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Okay, just a quick one, Wendy. Thanks also for your presentation. In terms of your national survey, you only surveyed 12,000 households. What is your participation rate? How many anglers are included in that?
I don't actually know. I know that the water sports participation, it's changed since from COVID. So they used to ring each household, or no, I think they used to go round each 12,000, and then obviously COVID happened and that stopped. So we've had to take a break from that one, and they're doing extrapolating from the old ones. But yeah, I'm not sure what the participation rate is on that. I'll have to check. I think it's like 1.7, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, because I might be wrong.
I think it's tea break now. So thanks, Wendy. Thanks to all the other speakers.